Today we will replace the transmission fluid in this older Lexus RX350. On this particular two-wheel drive vehicle, the transmission is also the front differential, and that creates something called the Transaxle, so we're replacing the fluid in the Transaxle. To complete this job, you'll need a number of tools, linked below to gather all of these. A socket set, floor jack, jack stands, new fluid. It's important to get the Lexus brand here. We have ATFWS spec'd for this vehicle. A pump to pump the new fluid in, reservoir for our old fluid, drain plug and fill plug gaskets, torque wrench, diagnostic computer to make sure we fill at the correct temperature, an oil spill mat, and a fluid container. This fluid container allows you to measure how much fluid came out. This helps to ensure that you put the proper amount of fluid in. Although we're going to intentionally overfill our system a little bit and drain off the excess, this is actually what Lexus recommends. And even if your vehicle manufacturer says transmission fluid never needs to be replaced, in order to extend the life of this vehicle, you really should replace the transmission fluid every 30 to 50,000 miles. Before we get too far with this project, we want to crawl underneath the front of the vehicle. And let's make sure we can loosen up this drain plug. Use a 6mm hex key to loosen up this drain plug. Okay, we broke it loose, so we're going to snug it back up before any oil comes out. And we also have to be certain that we can loosen up the fill plug, otherwise we'll drain all the fluid and not be able to fill up this vehicle. The fill plug is behind the driver's side wheel. We're gonna have to jack up the vehicle a little bit, remove this wheel to gain access. Put some wheel chocks behind the rear wheels. Apply the vehicle parking brake. And we'll jack up the vehicle at the vehicle jack point. Let's get this wheel off the ground. I placed the jack stand underneath the vehicle frame, and I'll drop the vehicle onto that jack. I'll pump up my jack. It's not taking any load, but it's there for just extra safety. And now completely remove your wheel. With a 10mm socket, remove bolts 1 and 2 to take off this cover. And there is your fill plug. With a 24mm socket and potentially a breaker bar, make sure you can loosen up that fill plug. And this is loose. At this point, we can go ahead and remove entirely the fill plug. Make sure you take your gasket, pretty much a washer, along with it. The oil catch pan and oil spill mat are in place. We have our 6mm Allen key again, and let's pull out entirely the drain plug. Get your drain plug gasket, looks just like a washer along with your drain plug. Let this fluid flow, slow to a bit of a trickle. The fluid's now trickling, but we're not done draining yet. Come back in with your 6mm Allen key again, insert it inside that hole, and begin to loosen up an overfill tube that exists. It's not on there very tight. You can see now the tube coming out. The Lexus GX and a lot of other vehicles have completely different holes for the drain and the overfill plug. In the case of the RX, the single hole provides both the drain and the overfill. There's our overfill tube completely removed, and now we let the fluid drain completely. This process will not remove 100% of the old fluid in the transmission and differential, but it will remove a lot of it. That's good enough for this higher mileage vehicle. The fluid's completely drained, so we're going to reinsert our overfill tube. And screw the overfill tube back in. You don't want to tighten it too much, otherwise you'll break it. Tighten to a torque of 15 inch-pounds. And let's reassemble our fill plug. For now, we're going to reuse the original gasket on that drain plug. But in a future step, we'll replace it with our new one. Snug up that drain plug. It doesn't matter the exact torque right now because later we're going to remove it. Pouring the old fluid into our measuring container, we can see that we emptied about 2 quarts. So you could just try to fill up the transmission with the exact same amount of fluid, or you can do what we're going to do and follow the Lexus fill procedure. And we're back at the fill plug. So we're going to use a pump to pump in some new fluid. You can also use a funnel with a long tube. Let's insert on this side the discharge end of our pump. And we have our pump configured to fit into these quart containers. This pump can be modified to fit a number of different container sizes. Put that in our first quart of transmission fluid. And from here, begin pumping in our new fluid. We've emptied one container of transmission fluid into our transmission, and now we're entering a second container, and we'll even add a third just to be sure. We're intentionally overfilling this transmission, but no worries, we're later going to drain off the excess fluid per the proper Lexus procedure. At the rate this is going, I'm glad I'm using a pump rather than just using a funnel and allowing gravity to do the work. Some fluid dribbles out with some pumps. I imagine this is due to air pockets forming, and using a funnel and gravity would probably overwhelm this system, and fluid would flow in much too quickly, and a lot would drain out rather than stay in the transmission. Moral of the story is, use a pump. I added 3 quarts of fluid to the system, and now we'll focus on this fill plug. Throw away the old gasket and replace it with a new gasket. Reassemble the fill plug and torque it down to 36 foot-pounds. Reassemble your plastic cover. Reassemble your wheel. Use a calibrated kick to torque to 76 foot-pounds. The vehicle is now lowered onto the ground. We now have to drain off the excess fluid. In order to do that properly, the vehicle must be level, not on a hill, for example, and we have to drain off the fluid when the fluid reaches a certain operating temperature. In order to determine that fluid temperature, we're going to use this scanner. There are other ways to do this, but we're going to be using this particular scanner. Link in the description below to get your own. Plug your cable into the vehicle diagnostic port and turn on the vehicle. Power on your diagnostic computer. Select Diagnose. Auto detect. The computer is going to read the vehicle's VIN number. The VIN number has been read. Select OK. 16 pin, other. I don't have radar cruise, other, and OK. While the computer is reading the vehicle, we're going to shift through the gears manually on the vehicle to circulate that fluid. Parking brake is on. I'm also applying the manual brake, and then we're going to move our gear shift over to manual and then shift the gears through the range. We're in 6th gear, go down to 5th. We'll wait a second or two at each gear. 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st. Go back to park. And then you can try this again if you'd like as well. The vehicle's back in park, and the computer read the vehicle, so we're gonna back up from here. Scroll to ECM engine control module, select, okay. Read data stream, and then from here you can select a number of values that you want to read from the vehicle. We're looking for the automatic transmission fluid. That's the AT oil temp from ECT. Select OK. The computer's now reading the transmission fluid temperature. It's 90 degrees Fahrenheit right now. We're going to wait for this to reach between 104 and 113 degrees Fahrenheit to drain off the excess fluid. The fluid expands with higher temperatures, so we want to wait for that exact temperature to be reached so that we set the appropriate fluid level. I've crawled underneath the vehicle. The vehicle is still running, and I have my computer back there reading the temperature of the fluid. I'm waiting for the fluid to reach the appropriate temperature. At that point, between 104 and 113 degrees Fahrenheit, I'm going to remove this drain plug. Only the outer plug, not the inner plug, not the inner plug, not that tube. And then I'm going to drain off the excess fluid that is flowing over top of that tube. I'm also ready with my new gasket to reinstall after the draining is complete. The computer reads right now 96 degrees on the oil. It has to warm up some more. In the meantime, I'm going to check something out here. This is the oil pan, and I have a temperature gauge. Let's measure the temperature of this oil pan. 100 degrees on the bottom. On the side, it's measuring 102 degrees. So not all too different, measuring the temperature here versus the computer. If you don't have a computer to measure your oil temperature, you could potentially just use a temperature gauge like this. Link below to get yours, to make sure that you drain at the correct temperature. Okay, we've reached temperature. The computer right now reads 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Measuring with our temperature gauge, the oil pan, we're seeing 108, so similar range, and 111 on the side. From here, we need to remove that outer drain plug and drain off the excess fluid. We have our catch pan in place to catch the fluid as it flows out. There's our excess fluid flowing out. Remember, we overfilled, so we might see even up to a quart or so come out. We'll give it some time and allow this to become a trickle In the meantime, let's replace our old gasket. It's pretty much just a washer with the new gasket. The fluid is just trickling now, so let's reinstall the drain plug. We'll tighten a bit for now and then later come back and tighten to the correct torque. And finally, tighten your drain bolt to 30 foot-pounds. And with that, the transmission fluid has been drained and filled. Instead of doing the drain and fill method, you could also drop this entire pan and at that point change the filter. That's something you might want to do more around 100,000 miles. You don't have to do it as often. With about 2 hours and $30 invested in this project, I didn't spend too much time or money. I know the job was done correctly and I did not have to take the vehicle to a mechanic. I hope this helps you with your project.